Yesterday we talked about variation and traits. So let's just look real quickly at the quiz questions. So that first one, differences between living things, are variation. We consider, I did. All right, so differences in characteristics between living things are called variation. We talked about that yesterday. When you measure any trait in a large group of living things, the largest number of individuals with a particular measurement is usually going to be where? Right in the middle. That's the normal distribution. Variation comes from two living things. I intentionally wrote this one to be tricky. So the environment and food sources. Did we talk about the environment and food being things that affect? Yeah. But food is part of your environment. Whether you're getting enough food, what kind of food you're getting, that's part of your environment. So that's really just one answer. Food sources and genetics. Well, yeah, food affects you, but food is only one piece of the environment which affects you, and genetics certainly are the other half. Genetics and DNA, those are the same thing. Your DNA is your genetic code. So the last one is the correct answer, the environment and genetics. And if your data looks like this, and what I showed was something that looked, well, let's get rid of these guys. We had something that was like that, and that would be a skewed distribution. And that would be skewed towards which end? Skewed towards the upper end or the lower end? Upper, yeah, that's skewed up. And the graph on your quiz said that this was the length of smallmouth bass in some lake. So this means we got a lot of big bass out there. This is a good place to toss a worm in. Okay, questions on the quiz? Overall, not too bad. So the grades are in for that. Let's talk a little bit about the next couple of words here. Actually, let's start talking about this chunk. Distributions. So, what is a distribution? What is a distribution?
Like when we send things out.
When we what?
When you like send things out, like you just.
Okay, we can use the term that way, like to distribute something. I'm going to distribute these chocolate chip cookies. Here's a cookie for you, here's a cookie for you, here's a cookie for you. It's really how a trait is sort of spread out. When we're talking about a distribution in biology, it's like how a trait is spread out over a population, over a group of individuals. So the two that we are going to focus most on are these normal and skewed distributions. And if you remember, a normal distribution looks something like that. That would be considered a normal distribution. That one might have a slight skew, but not too bad. So with a normal distribution, what's the measurement that occurs most often? What do we call that mathematically? If you think back to your lab, do you remember that? The measurement that occurs most often is the mode. So the mode is the measurement that occurs the most often. If you had 10 people who had a 21 centimeter hand span, and 4 and 5 people who had this, and 2 and 3 people who had that, that measurement that occurs most often is your mode. So this is a normal distribution. The mode in a normal distribution is in the center. We say this is a distribution with a central mode. Okay? So a normal distribution has a central mode. Do you remember what the other name for a normal distribution is? It's also called a what curve? It's the other name for a normal distribution. Remember? Ding, ding, ding. It's a bell curve. Yeah. So normal distribution is also called a bell curve. And all this means is that it has a central mode, that your largest number of individuals with a particular measurement are in the middle. They are in the center. What would we call this one? What kind of distribution is this? Skewed. So this is a skewed, whoops. Distribution. If you have a skewed distribution, all it means, where's the mode on this one? Where is it? Point. Yeah. The mode is all the way down here, because remember the mode is the measurement with the largest number of individuals. So a skewed distribution has a mode near one extreme. And it can be either extreme. The mode can be at the high end, it can be at the low end. What if we took our handspan measurements from you guys and then we headed down to the kindergarten and measured all their handspans? Do you think that would shift our mode based on who we measured? We would end up with a skewed distribution. Would it be skewed on the small end or the large end? Measuring the handspan of little kindergartners. Yeah, we would show a skewed distribution on the small end. Now we could explain that by saying, oh, whoops, we measured the kindergarten. You know, and there would still be variation within the kindergartners. They're all going to end up different sizes, and some of them grow faster than others, and some of them are going to hit a growth spurt in the 4th grade, and they're going to, you know, their hands, their feet, everything's going to grow. But we would end up with a skewed distribution. Years ago, when I did all my fish squeezing stuff, the other end of squeezing fish is that you have to stock fish. And so we would pull up with the truck, and there would be these little square boxes. They were about 1.5 feet by 1.5 feet. And inside of them were plastic bags tied with a really tight rubber band. And if you opened that up inside, it looked like black, just something moving. And they were full of walleye that were about 1 centimeter long. At that stage, they call them 2 eyes and a wiggle. That's all they are. They're not even fry or fingerlings. I mean, they are the tiniest little stage of fish you can imagine. And we would take those out on the boat, and you would run a siphon hose from the box of tiny, tiny fish out into the lake. If you went out right behind the boat and you sampled the size of fish, do you think you would end up with a skewed distribution? If you went out right behind the boat that was stocking the little teeny tiny fish? Yeah. You'd end up with a skewed distribution because you would be measuring all those tiny fish, and it would skew your distribution. It wouldn't be a good reflection of your population. Okay, so there's that word again. We keep saying that, you know, this is a distribution of a trait in a population. Let's talk about the word population. What does it mean? This is one you've heard before. What does population mean?
The amount of...
Okay, that is the common usage. The number of people in East Liverpool, the population of East Liverpool. The number of people in Columbiana County, the population of Columbiana County. The population of this room. There is a different usage in biology. So this is important, because if you don't consciously think about, like, oh, hey, there's a different way to talk about this, you'll just end up sort of inserting your old definition. So a population is a group. It's all the members of a species that live in a defined geographical area. So it's all the members of a species that live in a defined geographical area. So we can talk about the population of white-tailed deer in Columbiana County. We can talk about the population of maple trees in Fairfield Township. We're not talking about how many there are. We're talking about them as a group, and then we can talk about their characteristics. We can talk about variation in the population. So this is different than talking about how many there are. And I'm gonna put this. Not how many there are. Okay, this is not a count thing. This is not the kind of thing you would get with census data. This is just the group. So when we talk about the distribution of a characteristic in a population, that's really what we're talking about. So for each of your species, we can talk about the population of copperheads in Columbiana County, Ohio. We can talk about variation in the population. We can talk about the size of the population. We can talk about reproductive success for the population of copperheads in Columbiana County, Ohio. We can talk about diversity amongst the population of turkeys in Columbiana County, Ohio. We can talk about all of these characteristics of your species. So, after you finish copying this, what I want you to do is go out into the interwebs and find images of variation within your species. So you got one picture. Good ways to access that information are things like looking up color phase. If you have a fur-bearing mammal, actually they use that same terminology for snakes too, so that would work. Color phase of eastern coyotes, color phases of black bears. Black bears, of course, come in very, very dark, almost black. They come in sort of a reddish brown. They sometimes call those cinnamon bears. And there are some that are sort of blondie. No beavers in here, huh? Ironic, isn't it? I love castor canadensis. They're cool. Okay, so once you've finished copying this, then you're going to go to the interwebs and find pictures of variation in your species. That's all we're going to do for today.